What if you could sit down and have a conversation with yourself? Not the version of you from yesterday, not even the one from today. I mean the version of you who has already lived your dream life, the one who made the hard choices, overcame the struggles, and became the person you're secretly hoping you'll become. Would that future self thank you? Or would they warn you? Today, we're going to find out. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And Napoleon Hill taught us that whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But here's the question: what if we combine the wisdom of these great thinkers with the technology of today? What if we used artificial intelligence not just to create tools or automate tasks, but to simulate a dialogue with our very own future self? That's exactly what we're going to explore in this video. Imagine this experiment like a time machine, except instead of gears, wires, and flashing lights, the engine is psychology. Jungian psychology tells us that each of us carries within us an archetype of the self, a kind of inner blueprint of who we're meant to be at our fullest. Hill's work reminds us that the mind is the greatest workshop, and that success is first built in thought before it ever becomes reality. Now, combine that with AI, something that can mirror back patterns, ideas, and possibilities, and suddenly you have a way to sit face to face with your own potential. When I type my first question into the AI, what am I doing today that's holding me back? I didn't expect much. Maybe a motivational quote, or a piece of generic advice. But what I got instead felt strangely personal, almost like a voice I had been ignoring inside my own head finally had the courage to speak out loud. And in that moment, I realized maybe AI isn't telling us who we'll be in the future. Maybe it's helping us discover who we already are, beneath the noise, beneath the fear. So in the next few minutes, you're going to hear parts of that conversation. We'll be asking my future self questions that Jung himself might have asked in a therapy session. What am I avoiding? What habits will change my destiny? Who are the people I must surround myself with? And most of all, what will I regret if I don't change now? The answers are not predictions. They are mirrors. Mirrors that reveal the shadow side holding us back, and the guiding light that can move us forward. This isn't science fiction. It's psychology, it's philosophy, and it's a reminder that your future self is already whispering to you, if you're willing to listen. So let's begin the dialogue. Let's step into the room, sit across the table, and ask the very first question. Underscore 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 underscore. I sit across from my future self. The room is quiet, too quiet. My palms are sweaty, my chest tight. I don't even know what to ask first. But then it hits me. If there's one thing I've always struggled with, it's a feeling that I'm holding myself back, like there's an invisible weight tied to my shoulders. So I ask the question that scares me most. What am I doing today that's keeping me from becoming you? You hide, not in the way you think, not by staying home, not by avoiding people, but by pretending to be smaller than you are. You avoid conflict when you should speak up. You stay busy with little things so you don't have to face the big ones. And every time you tell yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," you feed the part of you that wants to stay weak. That part of you is a name. Jung called it the shadow. It's the version of you that clings to fear, shame, and old wounds. Right now, you serve it more than you serve your future. The words cut deep. Jung believed that the shadow is a hidden part of ourselves we'd rather not admit exists. The anger, the doubt, the laziness, the envy, and yet ignoring it only gives it more power. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. My future self isn't blaming the world, or luck, or circumstance. The enemy isn't out there. It's in here. The truth is, Every excuse you make today becomes a brick in the prison you'll live in tomorrow. You already know what needs to change, but you confuse awareness with action. Thinking about growth isn't the same as growing. Planning success isn't the same as achieving it. Until you face the shadow, it owns you. Napoleon Hill once wrote that procrastination is the bad habit of putting off until the day after tomorrow what should have been done the day before yesterday. I hear those words echo now, but louder, because this isn't just a quote in a book. This is my future self telling me that every delay today is a regret tomorrow. So what do I do? How do I stop hiding? Stop lying to yourself. Write down the 3 things you're avoiding most right now, and do one of them today. Not perfectly, not completely, just begin. The shadow doesn't vanish when ignored. It weakens when confronted. Every time you act in spite of fear, you take back a piece of yourself. And one day, you'll look in the mirror and see me, not as a stranger, but as a person you always were meant to be. The room falls silent again. My future self doesn't need to say more, because the truth is, I already knew the answer. But hearing it from the voice of who I could become makes it impossible to ignore. The first answer shook me. My shadow wasn't just some psychological concept. It was a real force in my daily life. But if the shadow shows me what to avoid, then maybe the next question can reveal what to pursue. I take a breath and lean forward. What habits did you start that changed everything? Everything began with one decision. I stopped drifting. Napoleon Hill warned about drifters, people who go through life without a definite purpose, letting circumstances push them wherever the current goes. That was you, until you chose direction. The habit that changed everything? Clarity. Every morning, I wrote down my purpose. Not vague wishes, but clear, specific, measurable steps. What Hill called definiteness of purpose. The second habit was persistence. I stopped chasing motivation and started building discipline. Motivation fades. Discipline endures. The third was simplicity. I quit trying to do everything. I focused on the few actions that mattered most and repeated them until it became second nature. Clarity, persistence, simplicity. 3 words, but 3 words that explain why my future looks so different from my present. Jung would say that our psyche longs for wholeness, for a vision of who we can become. Hill would argue that this vision must be turned into practical steps, repeated every single day. And here, across the table, I'm being reminded that my future isn't built in some far-off decade. It's built in the daily habits I choose or refuse today. So what should I do tomorrow morning? Tomorrow, begin with silence. 10 minutes, no phone, no distractions. Sit with your thoughts and write a single sentence. This is a person I am becoming. Then list the 3 actions that move you closer to that person. Just 3. Do them, even if imperfectly. And repeat this every day until it feels strange not to do it. The most powerful habits are the simplest. But the simplest habits are also the easiest to ignore. That's why most people never meet their future selves. They drift until time runs out. Hill once wrote, "The starting point of all achievement is desire." But I realize now, desire without direction is like fire without fuel. It burns hot, but dies quickly. The habits my future self described aren't dramatic. They are not glamorous. But maybe that's the point. Greatness isn't built in grand gestures. It's forged in quiet, repeated acts of clarity, persistence, and simplicity. As I sit in silence, I can almost feel a shift inside me, like the fog is clearing. The shadow may still be there, but so is the path forward. The next question rises to my lips almost naturally. If habits built the foundation, then who helped me build the walls? Who stood by me when I couldn't do it alone? Underscore 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 underscore. I had always thought success was a solo journey, me against the world. But as I sat across from my future self, I realized there was another question tugging at me. Because if habits are the foundation of change, then who helped me build a house? Present you, who helped you get here? Future you, I didn't get here alone. No one does. There were mentors who saw possibilities in me that I couldn't see yet. There were friends who pushed me when I wanted to quit. There were even strangers, authors, teachers, voices from history, whose words lit fires in me that still burn today. But here's the truth. Most people fail not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because they surround themselves with the wrong voices. Negativity, doubt, small-mindedness, it seeps into you even when you don't notice. The turning point in my life came when I chose my circle intentionally. I built what Napoleon Hill called a mastermind group, a community of people aligned in vision, committed to growth, and unafraid to challenge me. The word mastermind echoes in my thoughts. Hill wrote that no great success is ever achieved without the cooperation of others. Jung might have agreed in his own way, reminding us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires interaction with others as mirrors of our unconscious. It's strange to think that my future self is telling me something so obvious, and yet something I've ignored for years. The people around you are either ladders or anchors. Some will lift you higher, others will weigh you down. I grew when I stopped clinging to relationships that fed my ego but starved my soul. I grew when I sought out people who demanded more of me, not in cruelty, but in love. And I grew when I realized that mentorship doesn't just happen by luck. You must ask, you must seek, you must have the humility to learn. So you're saying I can't do this alone. You can start alone, but you won't finish alone. The lone wolf may survive a season, but the pack thrives for a lifetime. If you want to become me, choose your pack carefully, because one mentor, one ally, one conversation can change the course of your entire life. I feel a lump in my throat. I've spent so much time trying to prove I could do it all myself, when in truth, I've been starving for the wisdom and support of others. Hill called it the mastermind. Jung called it individuation. My future self calls it survival. I sit back, realizing that my path forward isn't just about habits or discipline. It's about people, the right people. And yet, there's one more question I need to ask, perhaps the hardest of all. What will I regret if I don't change now? Underscore 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 underscore. The room feels heavier now. I've asked about my shadow, about my habits, about the people who shaped me. But there's one question left, the question that keeps me awake at night. I hesitate because I already know the answer will hurt. What will I regret if I don't change now? You will regret the time, not the money you didn't make, not the opportunities you missed, not even the failures you suffered. You will regret the hours, the days, the years that slipped through your hands because you believed you had more of them than you did. You will regret the silence, the words of love you never said, the apologies you never gave, the dreams you never spoke aloud. You will regret the safety you clung to, the comfort you chose instead of courage. The shadow will whisper to you until your final breath, you could have been more. And the most painful regret of all, you will realize that no one stopped you but yourself. The words hit me like thunder. Jung believed that to ignore our potential is to live half a life, what he called the tragedy of the unlived self. Hill warned that most people die with their dreams still locked inside them because they never dared to act. And now, across the table, my future self is confirming the same truth. Time is the one currency that never refunds. Regret doesn't come from falling down. Regret comes from never standing up. You will fail. You will stumble. You will lose things along the way. But none of that will matter if you rise again. What will matter is the dream you never chased, the book you never wrote, the business you never started, the person you never became. The future doesn't punish you. It simply reflects what you chose. And if you choose fear today, you will inherit regret tomorrow. Then what should I do? Right now. Today. Begin. Not next week. Not when it's convenient. Not when you feel ready. Begin today with one small act of courage. Because every moment you delay, you trade a piece of your future for a piece of regret. And I promise you, when you look back, that trade is never worth it. The room is silent again. But this silence feels different. Less like a wait, more like a doorway. I realize that the greatest tragedy is not that time runs out. It's that we act as if it never will. And in that realization, something shifts. The conversation is ending, but the choice is just beginning. Underscore, 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 underscore. The conversation is over, but the voice of my future self still echoes in my mind, like a bell that refuses to stop ringing. The shadow is real, and it waits for me in every excuse, every delay, every fear. The habits are simple, but they demand daily commitment, clarity, persistence, simplicity. The people around me will either raise me higher or keep me chained. And the deepest regret of all will be pretending I had more time than I do. Carl Jung was right. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. And Napoleon Hill was right too. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But neither wisdom matters unless I act on it. Today. And that brings me to you. Because this wasn't really my conversation. It was yours. You don't need a time machine to meet your future self. You just need the courage to ask the hard questions. What shadow is holding me back? What habits will build my tomorrow? Who are the people shaping my future? And most of all, what will I regret if I don't begin now? I can't answer those questions for you, but I promise you this, your future self is already whispering. Sometimes it sounds like a quiet nudge, go for a walk. Sometimes it's a restless urge, start the thing you keep putting off. Sometimes it's a warning, if you keep living this way, you won't like where it leads. The question is, will you listen? So here's my challenge to you. Before this day ends, take 5 minutes. Write a letter from your future self to the person you are right now. Don't overthink it. Just let the words flow. And then act on one thing from that letter today. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Today. If this conversation sparks something in you, then you're ready for what comes next. Subscribe for the journey ahead, because in the next video, we're diving even deeper into the hidden parts of the mind and how they shape the destiny you're building right now. And in the comments below, tell me, what would your future self thank you for today? Because your answer just might change your life. Music swells. Screen fades to black with words. Begin today. Your future is waiting.